Hello, everybody. I'm Tony Gillespie Weaver Jr., and tonight we're going to be talking about a special topic working with the youth of military deployed parents. So, here's the agenda. I'm going to talk about the importance of this topic for me and the importance of this topic for the counseling profession. I'm going to give some facts as well. Then I'll provide some interesting findings in the literature that I've provided for this particular topic. The theory and techniques that I would use for this population, and then also desired outcomes. So, just starting out on the importance of this topic of dealing with and working with youth of military deployed parents. First thing I want to do is just kind of read this: that military war deployments of family members significantly impact children and adolescents within that military family. And then parents' deployments have a significant effect on child and adolescent behavioral, academic, emotional, and peer relationship outcomes. And so what we can come to understand from these two statements is that there's a lot that goes on with military within the military when deployments occur, especially with the children who are left here stateside and having to work through a parent being deployed as well as a parent who is still remaining back and trying to deal with that as well. And so, really, that child or adolescent has to work through, anger, frustration, disappointment within themselves, as well as the same thing that their caregiver or their parent that's remaining back has to work through as well. And that's even before the military person who's deployed, comes in with the circumstances that they have to deal with as well. So that's why I think it's important. And so now, just to give you just some numbers to kind of think about and consider as we go forward. First thing I want to do is show you this. This document looks like the source is Brook Institution, and this is from BBC. But this is a article that talks about U.S. troop support in Iraq since 2003. And in this graph, you can see where we provided over 100, up to over 157,000 troops from 2003 up until 2011. That was during the main time frame where we were providing a lot of troops, and there was a lot of multiple deployments, things to that effect. And so this just gives you just a brief idea of what we deal with within our military. And so now what I want to do is I want to show you another, it's not a graph, it's a table. And so what this table shows is the proportion of deployment service members with children by branch of service and component as of 2010. This is probably one of the best breakdowns that I could find, which is why I utilize this. And again, it's during one of the years that we had high deployments, things to that effect. And so during 2010, of the 324,000 plus Army personnel that we had either supporting Iraq or Afghanistan, because this number shows both Iraq and Afghanistan, 53% of those folks that were supporting that had family members under the age of 21 that they were supporting as dependents. In the Navy, 156,000 plus, 48% of those folks that were either supporting Iraq or Afghanistan had a dependent under the age of 21 or dependents under the age of 21. And so hopefully that gives you a little bit of just a little bit of information that kind of helps in developing a better understanding of this population. Now, one other thing I wanted to show because I thought it was important, and then we'll move on, is the proportion of deployed service members who had deployed multiple times. And so if you look here, 287,000 folks that were in the regular Army at the time. Out of that 287,000 folks, 47% of our force had multiple deployments in 2010. 47%. That means half of our force had deployed multiple times. And some of those folks, it may have been 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. I remember meeting a guy back in 2008 who had deployed 5 times. In other words, every turn of that, every turn that we had in Iraq, he was there. And so that's just to give you some background. And why is that important? It's important for this population of folks because each time that soldier deployed, guess who was left home? That kid was left home. And so, that kid and the father or mother, was also left home, and they all had to figure out how to work through life again. So, there was all, things such as depression, anger, frustration, disappointment, all those things. And, as I was kind of doing my studying and looking through our Counseling Children and Adolescents, the closest thing that I could even come to with having an understanding of this population was looking at data from the population of kids who have to deal with divorcing parents, kids who have hostile environments within their house, or even kids who have to deal with things like grief and frustration and things like that. So, I think that this topic is important because even though there's some information that's out there, I don't think we've done the greatest job at really developing this population so that it can be unique. We can understand this population and really provide the right type of interventions and treatments and things to that effect. So that's really part of the reason why I think that this topic is important. Hopefully I provided enough factual data to kind of show you what's going on. So now, let's see how much time I've got left. We've got 6 minutes left. All right. So I'm probably going to go over, but that's okay. Got a couple of documents that I wanted to show you here, some interesting literature. The first thing that I wanted to show you here was an educator's guide. To military children during deployment. And so I know that there's some school counselors that are out there, and what this does is provide you just a general breakdown. So this document was developed sometime between the Gulf War and before 9/11. But either way it goes, what this document gives you is just a general breakdown of what a child actually or what the parent and the family goes through, which is a pre-deployment phase before the soldier deploys, the deployment phase, and then post-deployment, which is when they come back. And so it gives you a lot of things that you can look for and some things to kind of to look out for and to help the child with throughout those phases. The next thing here, helping cope There was a document that was put out by Megan Allen and Lynn Staley that talks about helping children cope when a loved one is on military deployment. And so what that does, what this document does, it talks about kind of some of the same things as the previous document, but just provides a little bit more information from 2007, 2008, after we've had a few turns of deployments, some of the things that family members and educators were finding that could be helpful. So this is definitely a helpful document. And then psychosocial screening. This document was actually developed by a major in the United States Air Force who was also a medical person as well. And what this person was looking at was some of the psychosocial screening for children, and then they were comparing it to they were comparing the results that from the children to the results that the parents gave. So, in other words, they would screen both the parent that remained back, not the deployed parent, the parent that remained back with the child on any psychosocial symptoms that the child was experiencing. And then they also screened the child. And so what they found is that there was a difference in what the parent was seeing versus what the child was experiencing. Some in good ways, some in bad, but either way it goes, I think that helps us to understand as counselors that even though the parent may be talking about presenting symptoms, it is important for us to listen to the child as well, so that we can, provide to the child the best interventions possible. So that was just something that I thought was very interesting. And then this last document, I'm not going to talk too long about it. I do have it in my paper, but what that document talks about is that what this study found is that in 6th, 8th, and 11th graders, and again, this is an empirical document here, but what it found was that in that population of folks, they compared deploying, recently returned, and then kids with no parents that deployed at all, the use of drugs or alcohol as a coping mechanism. And what they found is that both the kids that had parents that were currently deployed and the kids that had parents that were recently returned, that they were binge drinking, that they were utilizing marijuana. And so, in other words, they became at risk. And so they put themselves, they have become in that category of at risk. And so that's something just to keep in mind. And again, that can go into either facts or interest in literature. Either way it goes, it's good information and understanding. All right, so theories and techniques. Let's see where we're at. I've got like 1 minute, but I know I'm going to go over, but it's okay. And so theories and techniques. What were some of the theories that I chose? I chose for early childhood intervention, filial therapy, and then also solution-focused brief therapy. And so I'm kind of deferring back to my this is my paper that I've written, and so kind of going back to it. So filial therapy, just some information I got about filial therapy. Filial therapy is going to be when both the child and the parent that's remaining behind while the soldiers deployed, that they would be in therapy together, and they would be conducting, some form of play therapy, and there's a therapist that's observing them, and he's empowering the parent on techniques to help the child to get through certain situations in that play therapy. which is also supposed to translate to being able to help the child in circumstances in circumstances, um, dealing with life and things like that. So um, I think that would be important. Also, solution focused therapy, which this came out of our book. It's a future focused, goal directed approach to counseling therapy that highlights the importance of searching for solutions rather than focusing on the problems. And I think this is a great technique to use um, for early childhood and middle childhood. I should have put that in there, but I didn't have it. Anyway, early and middle childhood interventions, um, because I think that fits right along with the cognitive and emotional development. And so one of the things that I would utilize along with this with SFBT as my technique that I would use would be play therapy. And in that play therapy, um, I would utilize SFBT. And I think one of the examples I gave as something that I would do and kind of outline it is um, I would, have a lot of crafts and arts and stuff like that so that um, a child could, and I guess it's kind of creative arts, but a child would replicate some kind of picture. If it was like uh, a boat or a bridge or something to that effect, the child would replicate that. And I would use things like detailing, to kind of detail things that are going along. And I would also use mind mapping, reframing, refocusing, all those kinds of things to help in not only just in that situation, but we can find key things that we can use for solving life problems as well. All right, so now going into adolescence intervention, what I would use is rational emotive behavioral therapy. Some of you have gone with me through some of the classes. I've talked about this quite a bit because I like it. And so what rational emotive behavioral therapy is looking at thoughts, emotions, and then actions or behavior. And so I think that during that adolescence are at a point emotionally and cognitively where they would be able to work through, where they would have rational thoughts and irrational thoughts. And I think that REBT would be a way to kind of meet them where they are with some irrational thinking that may occur. Um, and so, again, that's why I would use that. And so what I would use along with REBT would be creative arts, such as bibliotherapy, cinema therapy, and then journaling. One of the things that I thought about was using this book is called The Wishing Tree, and I know it does look like it's probably a 8 to 11-year-old book, but either way it goes, it's a very short read for one, and then the book talks about a girl that's dealing with the toughness of her father deploying. And so what she does is she builds this wishing tree. She has an artificial tree that she pulls all the leaves off of it, and she replaces those leaves with little wishes that she wishes for her dad. I wish good health. I wish he could eat good food. I wish for his safety. And she ties them onto the tree every day. Once a day, she does a wish. And so once the parent gets back, it serves as a talking piece of, hey, these are all the things that I thought about. These are all the things that I wish for you, and this is how much I thought about you while you were gone. I think that's great because that's a way to help with the reintegration. But while the child is gone, as they're going through those wishes and they're putting it on that tree, there may be some thoughts, that may not be rational, or there may be some other types of things that a adolescent will think about that we could explore and talk about together and use REBT as a way to help them through. And so, what's the desired outcome? Desired outcome is, and I had to think about this, like if I could do it all over again, what would be the desired outcome for my kids? You know, and that's healthy coping skills for the child or adolescents during single or multiple deployments of the parent or the caregiver. And then healthy reintegration once the family member returns, because the family member is not going to be the same. And the family dynamics is not going to be the same. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be tough to reintegrate before they find normal. Capability to understand, make adjustments and accommodations for the returned family member, and then living a healthy and productive childhood and adulthood with the skills to work through the challenges of being a part of a military family. Here are my references. There's so much more that I wanted to share, but due to the time constraint, we're just going to have to keep it moving. Thanks for listening in, and I hope you all enjoyed the brief.